Kia ora, friends. Hi, Marky's with me here. So today we're going to talk about something fairly contentious. We just started having a conversation and I realised that what we were thinking about was, you know, worthy of exploration and sharing with you guys. Maybe we'll see how this turns out. But you know, and particularly it's kind of fitting for this month of October that's traditionally Black History Month. At least it is in the UK, and I believe in the States.
It's worldwide. Yeah.
It's worldwide, but that wasn't always my experience. But we won't get into that. I wasn't aware that it was beyond the UK in October because I used to think it was another time. Not anyway. I guess where this began is I was just on my way to use some public facilities just now, and you bear in mind, guys, I remember I live in New Zealand, right, in Aotearoa, and on my way there was a kind of typical beach scene. You know, we live in a kind of beautiful seaside town. Have a look at where we are just quickly. Right, you see that? Isn't that gorgeous? So we're at the beach, we're at the seaside, the beautiful day, on my way to the public facilities, and you know, this dad, obviously, you know, not feeling terribly resourced in the moment, and again, not on the surface, nothing that strange about what I'm going to share with you, perhaps, or well, some of you may think. Sadly, yes, in fact, with the way we're normalised to things now. But let me just share what I experienced. On my way, I noticed there were a lot of kids. They all looked like, I would say, they were all under 10. They were little children, all in various states of undress, given that we're at the beach. So we were with their dad, getting into their kind of minivan kind of thing. What shocked me was the father's, not his kind of stressed, you know, energy or whatever. Of course, parents are often like the way he was, but what really upset me was, given that I'm an advocate for children, and you know, there's something a huge part of my modus operandi, my reason for being, is the protection and well-being of children and women and the earth and every other human who is vulnerable. He basically said F you to his baby. You know, I to me, under 10 you're still a baby, right? You might say, oh, it's a child, and be very particular about it. But that, if you think about it, a human being who's been alive for 5 years, considering that we probably will live to 100, that's just baby. So I just call that a baby, right? And he said, F you, you're just, okay, yeah, then you're just not getting in the car. Obviously, I didn't get the context, there's loads of pieces missing, but it was just...
The context doesn't matter.
The context doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of preempting the kinds of things I think people are how they're going to respond here. So, you don't know, you can't judge. I'm not necessarily,
what circumstances would that be okay?
Exactly.
To say that
to a tiny little child. And it was not just what he said, but how he said it, and the fact that I did a double take, you know, and as I said, I was just walking by, and I'm very sensitive, and I do notice stuff, and I pick up, you know, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm extremely sensitive as a human being to everything, every emotion, every feeling. I can, you know, I'm bizarrely sensitive really in some ways, but so I just was shocked. I was shocked to my core, but I was busy on my route elsewhere, so I didn't really process it then. But sitting down with Marky just now, I shared it with him, and just my horror came out really, and my upset about it, and it got us thinking really, because you know what we were thinking is that what we've observed. We've lived in 2 countries now, and I've lived really in 3. I would classify myself as someone who's lived in 3 countries. That is, I was born and raised in Britain. My parents are of Nigerian origin, which is West Africa. So I've only been to Nigeria one time in my entire life. So I'm very British. I'm very English, actually, specifically, as a person. And then everything else kind of layers on top. But I've also lived in the States, in America, for a brief time. And now I live in Aotearoa, which is the Tereo Maori name for this land called, that you will know as, New Zealand. So what we were thinking about was how, isn't it interesting? And Marky's worked in Africa as well, which is amazing. He's worked in Sierra Leone, and you know, we are just observing how it seems that every place in the world, and particularly for Black people and people of colour, like the Maori people, and it was a Maori family, the vignette I shared earlier, you know, what we observe is that violence that has been done to them continues, as most of us who are woke know this stuff, right? And I'm assuming if you're watching this and you're still listening, you probably have some awareness, or you're at least interested. But you know, the truth is, the effects of colonialism, as you should know, do not just disappear after one generation or two or three, or you're talking, in my view, I'm not a historian, I'm not an anthropologist or whatever, but in my view it's hundreds of years, if not thousands of years.
I mean, you use Wales as an example, which was colonised initially by the Normans, back in 1100.
Okay.
And there's still tensions.
Right. That's a really good point. I hadn't even thought about that. So yeah, Wales as in the place in the United Kingdom,
Yeah. So that's, well, how many years is that? My maths is terrible.
Oh my
God.
That's,
thousand
yeah,
plus.
It's a lot. My maths isn't good either.
Over a millennium.
Yes. And there's still tensions, there's still racist jokes, there's still a lot of kind of ingrained prejudice between the Welsh and the English, particularly, I would say. Do you think that's fair, Marky?
Yeah.
So, okay, but thinking about like coming back to this idea of particularly for black people, I think, because I'm of African heritage, and certainly in my culture there is a lot of violence towards children, particularly, and women, but I would say, you can almost argue in my head it's more towards the kids. So that means that the parents beat the children, and that is just considered the norm.
It's in West Indian culture as well.
Yeah. And Marky, you kind of observed this, I think, in Sierra Leone. I think you observed pretty horrific stuff, actually, as well.
I mean, the schools are, vicious to the kids.
Right.
Yeah, I saw a kid being beaten by a teacher.
Yeah. And you'd hope that things now in 2019 have moved on. But what we're really thinking about is how interesting it is that when a people, a nation, a culture has been corrupted by the influence of white people who've kind of come in and colonized the land, that violence, that kind of viciousness that is perpetrated on those human beings does not disappear, in my view. This is what happens instead. It becomes almost normalized, and as you said, Marky, it's like you have to make people subhuman if you're going to treat them in such abhorrent ways, like the slaves, like black slaves were treated, or the Jews. Another example, you can't see, if you see them as human, as you see them like you, that, oh God, they might feel it. If I slap them, if I hurt them, they're gonna hurt, they're gonna bleed, they're gonna be dead if I harm them. It's like you have to make them subhuman, and sadly, what happens is that actually becomes internalized to those people, and then instead of it just being like we can intellectualize it and rationalize it away and think, okay, I know what was done to me historically, I won't do that to my kids. It's like it's too late. It's already introjected. It's kind of already in the body, in the DNA of the people, and then it's perpetrated on their own kids.
And sometimes it's not necessarily cruel parenting, it's absent parenting.
Absolutely. It's non-parenting, it's neglect.
I remember back along there was a joke on Facebook. It was a picture of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And it said the caption was the only black man to admit he was the father.
Right. Oh,
and I remember
horrific.
it was terrible, and I complained to Facebook about it, and they came back and said we don't think this is racist.
Wow. Yeah, you see,
that's
a whole.
What they're
other
picking up
issue
on there is that this is my understanding anyway, that fathers tend not to be very good.
Yeah.
In some of the more impoverished African American families.
Yeah.
And it's no shit Sherlock really, because this goes back to slavery.
Yeah.
Families being split up, people not having fathering. So not being, if you've not been fathered, how do you know how to be a father?
Exactly.
And if that goes generation after generation with abuse on top of that and everything, and what happens is a lot of the people that have been colonised have been introduced to things like alcohol.
That's the other thing. Drugs in some cases.
Yeah. Which the old world, as it used to be called, is used to alcohol for thousands of years.
Yeah.
The new world weren't, so they're suddenly introduced to alcohol. So problems like alcoholism are rife in these kind of populations.
Yeah.
And they're kind of the
Maori, African,
Yeah. And the colonial population, they say, well, you say we're racist, but look at these people. They beat their children, they shout and scream, they're in jail all the time.
Yeah.
They're drunk all the time. They don't work.
Yeah.
They don't.
Lazy.
These things are all the social problems that were caused by the colonialism.
Exactly.
The people didn't wake up overnight and think, I think I'm just going to be a drunk and not be a very good parent. This was inculcated into these people.
Yeah.
By what was done, and therefore I'm looking at myself as a Paul and a white person. we are responsible. We did it, you know.
Cool.
I mean, I didn't do it, but my ancestors did it. And
exactly.
you know, and I can't look down on. I'm not in a position to look down on anybody else.
Not. No,
you know,
none of
if
us
anything,
are.
I kind of, you know, I feel guilty. I feel ashamed.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm the, you know, my ancestors were the cause of this, not their ancestors. Their ancestors were, you know, were living in their own society with
And
its own
peacefully,
values.
you know, the Maori people, this is what gets me. They didn't even have police. Like, before the white people came in, they didn't even have police.
They had a very strong culture of respect for women.
Yeah.
And sexual crimes were considered particularly heinous.
Yeah.
So there's a concept in the Maori tradition of whakapapa, which is your whole ancestral line.
Yeah.
So if somebody were to commit a rape, that was considered not just an insult to the woman, but to the whole community.
And
the whole of the ancestry.
Right.
And
the
it
whole
was considered
lineage.
that serious crime.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of sexual equality.
Right. Was this specific Maori culture we're speaking to now?
Children were treated very gently. Really nice values. You know, these are the traditional Maori values.
Yeah.
The values that people ascribe to Maori people now. And for example, you know, Maori people massively overrepresented in prison.
Yeah, massively. And it's the same fucking thing. It's the same thing that you see in Britain and in America. If you look at the stats for the number of black people in jail in Britain and in America, what you see is this massive discrepancy. Is that the right word? There's massive, like, you know, so many more black people, and you think, oh well, they must have brought it on themselves. No, you have to think deeper than that. And why is it that all of these nations that have been colonized have these same issues? You know, we need to think more broadly.
There's two sides to the prison thing as well, because there's one side is yes, you know, people who are from a culture that's been dispossessed or been oppressed or abused, they are going to present as more criminal. It's going to be more antisocial behaviour, because that's what happens. That's one of the social. As in, there's going to be more poverty. There's going to be more physical illness. There's going to be more everything. Really.
You've already messed it all up, you know. So you know you can't.
But also, you know, the thing that, you know, if, do white people in America go to jail? They don't seem to.
Yeah, exactly. Or they commit murder and they get 10 years. They get a slap on the blooming wrist.
And a hug.
And a hug.
And here, you know, here, if somebody, if a Pakeha person, which is the name for
someone who's non-Maori,
someone of European origin,
yeah,
and a Maori person both commit the same crime, they're and this is, I haven't researched this, I haven't looked at figures, but this is what I've been told, and I believe it. Then the likelihood is that the Maori person will get a more severe sentence.
Yeah. I mean, that just plays out across like places like America, Britain, and now we're learning about New Zealand. I guess I want to wrap this up. We're thinking about YouTube. My particularly for me, I really want to upload this in full for at least on my YouTube channel. So any final thoughts, Marky? It's a bit of a heavy one, but it just arose, and I thought, actually, why don't we just discuss?
Just, you know, I think it's just that people that don't know, what's the phrase? People that aren't familiar with history are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly.
So next time you look at somebody from a different race to you, and you think, oh, look at the way they behave, isn't that awful? Learn history.
Learn your
God's
freaking
sake,
history.
you know, find out why.
Yeah. Dig a bit deeper.
And your ancestors are to blame, not their ancestors.
Absolutely.
Okay, remember that.
Yes.
If you're
a white person
from a white colonial background.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Marky. You always help me this is why you marry the person who helps you think. For me, that's like crucially important, and to express myself, and so thank you for doing that with me, sweetheart.
No, it's good to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, it's good to talk about this stuff, and I hope it gets you thinking, if nothing else. All right, my friends, thank you for joining us.
Rangi Mario.
Kia ora, bye.